Welcome to part 2 of the video. Like I said in the first part, I tried to upload this video full, but it just wouldn't fly with the copyright system, so here's part 2. Let's get into the most controversial portion of Marvel. Our first Phase 4 project, and it's a TV show. This is when Marvel decided to branch out and give its characters TV shows, and this one's done pretty well. There's actually a fun gimmick with Wandavision, where many of the episodes are in the style of sitcoms throughout different decades. But there's a lot of questions. How was Vision alive? Is this actually happening, or is it a different universe type thing? Well, all this was on purpose, and was created by Wanda, as she accidentally trapped the whole town in this hex. This is dark, man, and the townspeople are begging her to let them die. I love how dark this whole story is, because it frames Wanda as being the villain, which I think is a great idea. She did create all this out of grief, but she's so desperate to have Vision back that she's fine with keeping these townspeople prisoner in their own bodies. Since Wanda got her powers from the Mind Stone, she's able to remake Vision in this hex, and I'm glad that these two got to have a major role in the story. While Wanda is able to control everything and everyone around her, she can't control Vision or her kids. Yeah, she makes kids. So Vision gets to slowly piece together what's going on. The mystery is set up so well, and it's enjoyable to re-watch, even though you know what's going to happen. While all the Westview stuff is happening, we also follow another government-type group called SWORD, who tries to help the people in Westview. This is kind of cool, but we get some random characters from other movies returning. Jimmy Woo from Antman and the Wasp, Darcy Lewis from the Thor movies, and an aged-up Monica Rambeau. I actually think the show uses these characters very well, and they aren't just cameos. Monica gets a lot of focus as we see the chaos of her coming back from the blip, and she gets powers when trying to get through the hex. Another character that kind of returns is Quicksilver, but it's not the same as the dead one. Evan Peters plays him, and it's fun casting since he played Quicksilver in the X-Men movies. He's actually a character named Ralph Boner, and people were pissed about this. Fans thought he was actually the same character from the X-Men movies, and were disappointed when he wasn't. How would this make sense in the story? It wouldn't. Shut up. He's just another fun cameo. While the show could have stopped at the Wanda vs. Sword plot, there's another antagonist who doesn't really need to be in the story. Agatha Harkness is a character I really enjoy. She's a 400-year-old witch who wants Wanda's power. It would have been so cool if Wanda and Sword were both almost villains, but doing what they think is right. But we have Agatha. She does serve to set up her own show, and Wanda's villain arc later. Agatha uses a spellbook called the Darkhold, and says that Wanda is actually a being in the witch lore known as the Scarlet Witch, and she has some kind of magic before the Mind Stone. Then a white Vision shows up, and what is happening? There's a lot going on in the last couple of episodes, but since the show is 9 episodes, it doesn't feel rushed at all. So Sword uses the corpse of the real Vision to rebuild him, and sends him to kill the fake Vision. But then fake Vision unlocks white Vision's memories, so technically, real Vision is back and out in the world somewhere. All this stuff with White Vision, Wanda being able to do magic spells, and Sword as a whole are cool, but the main problem Phase 4 has is that they set up all these loose threads, but nothing comes out of it, or at least doesn't matter for years. This show came out in 2021, and present day, we still have never seen White Vision again. Monica only appeared once in 2023, and it's also sad to me. Wanda does eventually take down the Hex, making it so fake Vision and her kids disappear. But she gets her hands on the Darkhold, and starts practicing spells. Overall, WandaVision is really solid, and it's probably one of the best TV shows. Another show, wow. I'm really glad we got Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Not only because it has my second favorite character in it, but it follows up Sam receiving the shield, and exploring how he comes to terms with taking on Captain America's name. Those are ginormous shoes to fill, and I find it realistic that Sam doesn't feel worthy at the beginning. Over the course of the show, he realizes that now more than ever, the people need a Captain America, and leaving up to everyone else to decide who will be that is a bad idea. Great character work there, and you probably think Bucky doesn't get much development either, right? Wrong, idiot! He must overcome his Winter Soldier trauma, and get some of the best scenes in the show. The scene in Wakanda where he overcomes the Winter Soldier activation code is beautiful. He also ends up being a little better as he makes amends with his demons. So we got two really solid main characters, but the villain is really bad. Carly Morgenthau and the Flag Smashers are just horrible antagonists, when on paper they don't sound too bad. They are fighting for the world to go back to the way it was during the blip, where the world was all united in a way. They were all kicked out of their homes when everyone got unblipped, so you can kind of see where they're coming from. But Carly starts blowing up shit and acts like she's a saint. It's not done really well, and the kicker is that all the Flag Smashers have super soldier serum, but that just feels like a way for them to not get bodied by Bucky. I just hate this group so much. There's a new character introduced who I really like as well. John Walker is given the title of Captain America, but isn't very good at it. He seems to already be pretty unstable, but then he takes some serum and kills a flag smasher. To be fair, his bestie Lamar was killed by them, and he was literally the best character. I really like the twisted Captain America angle they go with, and you aren't meant to like this Cap. That's what makes his ass whooping so good. The characters are what I like most about the show, because there's a lot of stuff happening that leaves everything feeling half-baked. There's the theme of Steve's legacy, the whole flag smasher stuff, and dealing with this new chaotic world. All of this could have been interesting individually, but cramming them all into 6 episodes is too much. What ends up being the main focus is Sam becoming Captain America. I like this, as it makes the most sense. And seeing him flying around with the shield is so sick. His little speech at the end is dumb, as he says that the government needs to do better, but you can kind of see where he's coming from. I was hoping to enjoy this one a little more, but it's a nice watch, and it's important for later on. Loki is the first show to get 2 seasons, with the second one coming out 2 years after. They follow right after each other, so I'm just going to talk about them together. Unlike Wandavision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I found that Loki benefited a lot more from the week-to-week formula. I just find that in the first season, the pacing is pretty slow. It was full of characters talking, which isn't always a bad thing. Like, I love Mobius and Loki's friendship, but I can't help but feel like it's dragging the show down. Season 2 is a lot better, and I found myself liking Season 2 more. Looking back, the first season didn't have anything that crazy or interesting happening. I enjoy the TVA and the idea of the multiverse, but they don't delve into that concept much. They focus more on the time travel stuff, which is still great, but this is the Multiverse saga. They tell us about the multiversal war with all the He Who Remain variants, but that's really it. I wish there were more to it. But the characters are the best part. Loki gets a ton of development, and this all comes together when he sacrifices himself to save the multiverse. His story is so great, and the other characters keep it up. Having Loki and Sylvie fall in love with themselves is the most narcissistic thing, and that's exactly what Loki would do. The show also benefits from having the best performances in the whole MCU. Everyone's acting is top notch, but Jonathan Majors is the standout. I know he's a piece of shit in real life, but fuck, this guy can act. He was meant to be the big bad of this saga, as they introduce his variants, but he's been replaced by Doctor Doom, and it's kind of a shame. I know some of my MCU opinions have been kind of controversial, but I just don't like this one as much as I thought. I do think it's the best made show, but I just can't get into it. The ending's really good though.
Wait, isn't Natasha dead?
Yes sir, she is. But this is a prequel movie, set after Civil War. It's a much simpler movie compared to what Loki was up to, and it's actually really nice. Natasha has to take down the man who made the Black Widow program to begin with, and along the way, she reconnects with her fake Russian family. Getting a movie focused on Natasha's past is a great idea, since we only ever heard quick remarks about her life throughout the MCU. I think the movie smashed it with the family drama stuff, and they are each pretty good characters. Melina is okay, Alexei is great, but Yelena is one of the best characters in Phase 4. She's very likable, and yeah, she may have the same skill set as Natasha, but she is more of an emotional person, which I like more. There's also Taskmaster, who could have been executed a little better, but I don't mind what we got. Her whole thing is that she can copy anyone's fighting style, or skill, so there are a few scenes of her performing moves from our favorite heroes. She's Dracov's daughter, and his right-hand assassin, which paired with her silent but deadly actions, makes her kind of lame to me. If she had even a bit more personality, she would work a lot better, but we'll see her again. The events of the movie are also whatever. This is a spy movie, so you'd expect some twists, but all of the big twists are so obvious. Since it's 2016 in universe, Natasha is on the run, but that never comes into play at all. It's only shown at the start to explain when it takes place, then nothing. The movie does have the rare case in the newer stuff, where it sets something up that gets paid off soon, which is nice to see. There's that infamous clip that shows some less than stellar green screen shots. And this starts the Phase 4 has shit CGI argument. I don't think it's fair to say that all the Phase 4 stuff has bad CGI, because it doesn't. There's just 1 or 2 effects in future projects that is a bit iffy. And that's pretty much all I have to say.
And ponder the question, what if?
What If is an anthology show, which gives us stories from across the multiverse. And this is a brilliant concept. We get so many great episodes with so many different scenarios and characters. My top 5 favourite episodes are: what if Kahori shaped the world? What if Peter Quill attacked Earth's mightiest heroes? What if Tony crashed into the Grand Master? What if zombies? What if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands? The Doctor Strange one would still be my favourite, even if he wasn't my favourite character, because it's a beautiful piece of fiction. Watching him try to stop Christine from dying is so compelling, and the ending is very bleak. Our Peggy Carter variant gets a lot of screen time, and I really like her. I would love for her to get her own show someday. Even though a lot of the episodes are meant to stand alone, there is some connectivity, which gives us something more concrete to follow. I really appreciate as well, most of the live action cast voice their animated selves, even though you can tell most of them haven't done this kind of work before.
Not quite. The beacon's location was corrupted in transit. We have no idea where it came from.
There's even a brand new character who I really like too.
Good for you, What If?
Kahori gets her powers from the Space Stone, and she's so damn powerful, joining the ranks of Infinity Stone powered women. What I don't enjoy is that Season 2's first episode is so boring. I don't care if Nebula becomes a cop. Some of these episodes' names too are so overcomplicated for no reason. Like, one is called What If Tony Crashed into the Grand Master, where it's just about Tony landing on Sakaar. Just call it What If Tony Landed on Sakaar. It's still a fun show, and I hope some of these variants show up in future projects. Also, as of recording, Season 3 would have come out right before I upload this video, and I'm sure it's gonna be just as good as the other seasons. Shang-Chi is a fun little movie to have. It's a martial arts movie, so you best believe it has some great fight scenes. Each one feels very distinct from the others, since there's usually an added element to keep the action feeling fresh. One has Shang-Chi fighting on a bus while trying to save people. Another has him fighting henchmen on the side of a building. And one has him fighting his dad with his own weapon. That last fight is one of the best in the entire MCU. Since many people gave up on the MCU after Endgame, you probably don't really know what's happening in this movie. Shang-Chi and his sister Xialing must stop their father from releasing a soul-sucking demon that would end the universe.
I thought this was about people slapping each other.
Okay, I'll admit that the plot does get a bit off the rails, but I think it's very well done. This movie has a very emotional core, with Wenwu trying to save his wife. He is being manipulated by a demon, but he's a grieving man, and I like that. Wenwu is one of the best villains in Phase 4, and I really like his motives. We as the audience know that his wife is dead, and so do the children, but I wish that it was more ambiguous. What if Lee's death was a mystery to the characters and us, like she went missing or something? You could get behind Wenwu's goal more, and make the story about accepting the loss. No, instead we have these airbenders. There's a lot of things in this movie, which is the best way to put it. There's the soul suckers, a dragon, Aquafina, and magic rings. So much is crammed in, when it could have been a simple kung fu movie with family drama. The 10 rings are really cool though, and Shang-Chi keeps them. Oh yeah. The post-credit scene sets up the rings to be callings for something, but this never gets followed up on. Is that Wong fighting Abomination? What a random cameo. Oh, and the movie has some shit lines. Man, this is such a guilty pleasure movie because this shit slaps. I can understand all its flaws, but I can't help but love this movie. This story probably has the biggest scale of the entire MCU, besides the last 2 Avengers movies. The sheer size of the Celestials are so breathtaking to look at. I really like the Eternals family dynamic, and I found myself getting attached to all of them, except Sprite. She literally contributes nothing to the movie other than wanting to bang Icarus. I do agree that this would have worked better as a show, to truly give each Eternal the proper screen time they deserve, but it's done fine in the movie. They each have different viewpoints and reasons for why they want to stop Tiamat from being born. That's the point. Stopping the god from destroying the earth with its girth. The characters either want to stop it, let it happen, or have no part. It just makes them feel more like characters, which I like. They all also have such cool powers, except Sprite. They have to fight these creatures called deviants, and they look pretty neat as well. One of them starts to kill and steal their powers to evolve, and this could have been a win-win. We have this cool villain who kills off some of the characters so the others can develop more, and Crow would get cool powers as well. Nah, he kills like 2 of them and then gets chopped up.
What a waste.
The movie is 2.5 hours long, which would make you think the pacing would be arse, but I don't mind it. It's a slower burn than most movies, but they have some fun action scenes with a lot of dynamic camera shots, and a storyteller structure that I vibe with. The characters would give us a piece of information that then would be a flashback going into detail about it. This isn't a new thing at all, but it just works well to tell the story of the characters who have lived for 7,000 years. I also love that Icarus is a twist villain because he's such a textbook good guy. He screams main character, and he even has similar powers to Superman. His motives are clear, and he gets humbled so hard. I have been glazing this movie really hard, hard, but it ends with a cliffhanger and has yet, or apparently will never be followed up on, since Eternals 2 might not happen. This is the one movie in this franchise that doesn't need to be connected to any of the other movies, but they won't continue it. That's sad, but this is still a good movie, and you'll never change that in my mind. Hawkeye in concept sounds like a good show. It follows Clint Barton, who has become more cynical towards the world. He teams up with the more optimistic Kate Bishop, as they have to figure out a conspiracy that gets deeper and deeper. Plus, it's set at Christmas time. There's obviously a lot more to the show, like Kingpin from the Daredevil series making his MCU debut, and his niece wanting to kill Clint for his actions as Ronin. All this should be good things, but it all feels so underwhelming. Nothing here is bad, I just don't care. The story is a lot more grounded compared to what we've had so far in Phase 4, so it has that going for it, but that's also a bit of a negative. I can't really remember what happens in this show, and I just watched the damn thing. I do like how they portrayed Clint though, being very over the world after losing his family for 5 years, as well as his best friend. He's more short-tempered and unwilling to deal with people's bullshit, but is given some levity when Kate comes into his life. The two have a fun dynamic, and she brings out the old Clint. Speaking of Kate, I really like her character. I feel like I've said that so much in this video. She's so fun, and I love her reactions to the unusual action stuff. She's in over her head most of the time, but she keeps fighting anyway. Her little banter with Yelena is great. Oh yeah, Yelena is here, following up on the Black Widow scene. She's trying to kill Clint because she thinks he's the reason Natasha died. But the two bond over their love for Nat and part ways. Yeah, overall, Hawkeye's a cute little show to watch. It just doesn't stick with me like the other ones. It lacks that sauce or cool moments to keep me engaged. There's nothing wrong with liking this, but I just don't. Last one, I promise, but watch that Spider-Man video. No Way Home is an awesome movie from concept to execution. Watching all three Spider-Men swing together is a surreal experience. And the other two don't overshadow Tom Holland's Peter. He actually has the most development out of all the movies, and I'm glad we got to see the more serious angle of the character. Peter and MJ have a lot more chemistry, and Aunt May dying and delivering the great power line was a neat twist. These three Spider-Man movies act as an origin story for Peter, and now he's ready to be the Spider-Man we know. The pacing can be a little slow at times, and I think the plot does take a little long to start, but when it does, oh boy. Also, my boy Doctor Strange is here, so 10 out of 10 movie.
Meet my friend.
Moon Knight! Yeah, Moon Knight is my third favorite character. Pretty shocking, I know, since I know we've only had him in one show, but I really enjoyed the self-discovery journey. Watching both Mark and Steven come to terms with each other is really interesting, and the whole idea of there being a superhero with DID is so fascinating. Oscar Isaac puts on probably one of the most impressive acting chops out of the whole MCU. He's so good at switching between the two personalities. Plus, Moon Knight's just really cool. Look at this suit, man. He doesn't have any crazy powers, but the vibes with him are bonkers. The two get their powers from Khonshu, as they face off against Arthur Harrow, who is another god's avatar. The two forces have very similar but conflicting motives, which I find really fascinating. Moon Knight punishes the wrongdoers after they've done harm, while Arthur and Amit, it says armpit on my script, punish those who will do wrong. Both sides have their fair reasons for doing so, and that's what makes the plot so cool. It's just a shame that it takes a while for said plot to kick into gear. We have to spend a couple of episodes with Steven trying to figure out what's going on. And this wouldn't be really that bad if the episodes don't go for 3 years. Every episode is almost an hour long, with there being tiny bursts of action thrown in there, which don't really help that much. It sets up some interesting stuff, like there being a secret, more violent third personality in the body. And I do like the reveal that there really is. I can't help but wish that the aspect of everything possibly being in Mark's head would be in the show more. I know it isn't in the head, but second guessing himself could have worked for the show's favor. Just like many of the new stuff, I love the character, but the show itself is very slow. I do think it's one of the better shows, but not my favorite. You'd think that Strange is my favorite character. I would have a biased opinion of this movie. I just think it's okay, really. There is stuff to like, but there's a lot of underwhelming parts. Since the title is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, rightfully, I expected there to be a lot of weird universes, but we only explore like 3 if you count the main MCU universe. The 838 universe does get the most screen time, and the whole Illuminati group is kind of cool to see, but they all get shat on. All of the members are cool, but Patrick Stewart playing Charles Xavier again is so much fun. Captain Carter in live action is a neat inclusion, and Jim Halpert, Mr. Fantastic, is hilarious. There was so many fan castings for him to play this character, but he doesn't leave much of a presence. With all the Strange variants, it's a shame we didn't get a Supreme Strange cameo from What If. This is a sequel, so does it expand Steven as a character? Slightly, yes. We now understand why Steven is always so desperate to be in control, when it's either in the surgery theater or when saving the universe. He had a sister who fell through some ice on a lake and died. He felt powerless to do anything. This reveal could have definitely had more weight, but he just tells a variant of himself. Christine and Steven's relationship is poked at more, as he realizes that he isn't happy without her, but comes to move on. Again, all of this is kind of lame when you realize he says all this to 838 Christine and not his own. There are a lot more problems, like they try to salvage the post-credit scene from the first movie, but it's too late. And that there's a lot of downtime between the bigger moments, which gets tiring. Okay, I'm gonna compliment this movie now. This movie does do something that Wandavision was too scared to do, making Wanda the main villain. She wants new character, America Chavez, because she has the ability to travel the multiverse. Wanda wants to travel to a universe where her kids are real. This is an overcomplicated plan when you consider that Wanda could have just got freaky. Oh, and that the Darkhold has corrupted her. She becomes an unstoppable force that no one can stop, but boy do they try. Also, Zombie Strange uses souls as a cape, which is badass. I love how Sam Raimi's directing makes this movie feel completely different from all the others, through shots and editing. It leads to a lot of campy and goofy moments that I really adore. Kind of a fun movie, but doesn't live up to the original in my eyes. When Miss Marvel first released, I hated it. I considered it to be the worst show, but was hoping that rewatching it could help me appreciate it more. Instead, it doubled down that I think the show is such a shit viewing experience. Once again, the episodes are around 50 minutes long, but the story could have fit in about 3, or even a movie. I didn't have a problem with the long episode runtime in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because stuff was happening that was kind of cool. There's so much unnecessary content that really bloats the show. But what's the plot about? Kamala Khan unlocks some shiny new powers thanks to this bangle. Her great-grandmother was a being from a different dimension who was banished here with some friends. And now these friends want to use the bangle to return home and destroy the world.
What the fudge?
This just feels like such a weird direction to take, and I think the show could have benefited more from a simple origin story, kind of like what Spiderman normally does. What if we spend the time with Kamala as she tries to balance her teenage life with being a superhero? Then Damage Control can show up as the villains. It doesn't sound that good when I say it, but I don't write these shows. And what's funny is that these clandestines are just people, nothing special about them. There's also a hint of time travel. What the hell is this show? While I think literally everything about this show is poopy, it has one of the best main characters in Phase 4. Kamala Khan is such a charismatic individual, and I think she rivals Yelena as best new character. There's so much life to her, and it's always so much fun to watch her. Her powers as well are used in very cool ways. And I know they changed it from the comics, but I think just regular stretching would have looked goofy. Plus, her hard light is way more versatile. I also love Kamala's family. I love the bond they all have, and the banter feels so real. I can't believe these characters came out of the same miserable watch. You know what? I think I'm a Thor Love and Thunder defender. I don't think this movie is that bad, all things considered. Is there a lot of bad jokes and cringe moments? Yes. But is there also a heartfelt story centered around love? Also yes. When this movie wants to, it can have some really emotional moments, when it's not having its cringe ones. I think this movie greatly improves Jane's character, with her getting more involved with the story, and dealing with stage 4 cancer. She's just a lot more enjoyable to watch than the other Thor movies. The movie touches on her and Thor's touchy relationship, which we get to see more of, and it makes a lot of sense why they aren't together anymore. Jane using Mjolnir doesn't feel dumb or random, since Thor enchanted Mjolnir, like Odin once did. Thor also has a solid character arc in the movie. While it isn't anything groundbreaking, it shows us how Thor processed all his lost, since he didn't really do that in the 5-year time skip. He's a broken man who keeps his loved ones at arm's reach so he isn't hurt again. Yes, again, nothing crazy, but it's solid. And then Jane dies.
Add that to the list.
But he learns that love is important, and now he has a daughter to love. Plus, Chris Hemsworth has so much gusto acting-wise, that he makes some of the jokes actually funny to me.
Hey, there you are. Hey. I was just calling you.
Now let's talk about the villain, Gore the God Butcher. For the story, he's a decent villain, and he's played by Christian Bale, so that's awesome. He wants to kill all gods because he realized they're assholes. But I agree that he was kind of underused and wasted. We didn't even see him kill any gods, other than the first one. Not bad, but I wish we saw more of him. The Guardians are at the start of the movie, which is always fun to have, and makes sense considering where we left Thor in Endgame. And the whole Shadow Realm section was pretty cool to me. The vibes were so creepy, and I love how there was no color other than the lightning. This isn't a perfect movie, but I do think it's a little underrated. I Am Groot is a collection of shorts following Baby Groot. There's literally nothing else to say because every episode is just a random scenario that Groot is in. And I wouldn't even say they were great. It's all very silly. There's some character cameos from Rocket and The Watcher. I'm never watching these again because they're quite pointless. She-Hulk is considered one of the more controversial MCU outings, but I think it's a breath of fresh air. Instead of the show being confined to the samey feeling structure like all the other shows, She-Hulk does something different and has almost zero overarching plot. That sounds like a bad thing, considering what the MCU has become. But I think it's a nice change of pace. I'm honestly kind of sick of the world-ending threats we've been getting lately. Instead, the focus is mainly on the characters, which I appreciate a lot more. The episodes are a lot more episodic, with each normally revolving around a court case because Jen Walters is a lawyer. There are some fun superhero related cases here, but it feels like the show doesn't use the concept to its full potential. They scratch the surface of the courtroom drama that the show is advertised as. There's normally an A and B plot in each episode, and the runtime is way shorter, yes! This made the show a lot easier to watch than Ms. Marvel. This show is also a comedy, and yeah, it's not all that funny, but there were a fair amount of moments that made me giggle.
Morning.
While I said there isn't much of a multi-episode plotline, there is something happening in the background throughout the episodes that leads to this guy getting some of Jen's blood and turning into a Hulk. That is normally a pretty basic and honestly lame ending, but the show recognizes this. See, Jen Walters breaks the fourth wall, so she recognizes that this ending is garbage, so she storms Marvel Studios and talks to Kevin. This robot is Kevin, and just like this, there's a lot of pretty funny meta jokes about the state of the MCU.
Oh, and when are we getting the X-Men?
I cannot tell you that.
I really don't hate this ending, and it's refreshing to have something different. I've mentioned this Jen Walters a bunch of times, but you probably don't even know who she is. She's Bruce's cousin, who gets some of his blood in her system, and now can transform into She-Hulk. She can change in and out at will, and doesn't have to battle a raging monster. She gets the hang of this new form pretty quick, and fans were not happy about this. A lot of the first episode tells us that Jen is just naturally gifted at this Hulk stuff, so there was some outcry about making Brucey seem a lot weaker than Jen. While it could have been interesting to see Jen grapple with this new form, we already saw this journey with Bruce for 10 plus years, so that would feel really repetitive. The show takes Jen in a new direction. She may be able to control herself, but now she has to worry about how this affects her career and dating life. She tackles new problems, and she actually gets quite insecure about how everyone likes She-Hulk more than Jen. That's why I think I like Jen as a character. She's going through her life with this superhero twist, and I think it's kind of cool, I'm sorry. She has some funny lines, and her fourth wall breaks never become too much or annoying. And people 100% overplay how cringe this show is. What I didn't like about the show was how hard they pushed the man-bad approach. Now I get that some men are disgusting, and that's a very real thing women have to deal with. But this show takes it a little too far, I think. It's pretty much saying that there's only a small group of the male population that is good. There's so many male characters that are assholes, and I get what they're going for, but it feels really demeaning, like all men are bad. Sorry, I didn't mean to get political. But here's Hulk. Since it's Marvel, there's a lot of cameos which feel natural. Emil Blonsky shows up because Jen has to represent him. He gets into trouble when that video of his fight with Wong gets leaked online, so Wong shows up too. Bruce is here, obviously, and Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil. I liked his Netflix show, and this was cool even now. He's a lot more involved in the show since he's a lawyer too, and he's just so likable. Even the side characters I don't hate all that much. I can't really tell you much about them, but I don't hate them. I think the hate for the show is kind of bullshit, because at its worst, it's just okay, I think. It has a lot to offer, and the Hulk got laid? Continuing the MCU's goal of shaking things up, we have Werewolf by Night. It's a special case because it's Marvel's first special presentation. It's It's a 50-minute short film in the style of old-ass horror movies. Everything is in black and white, except the Bloodstone, and I think this vibe aesthetic goes absolutely hard. There is a fully coloured version, but the black and white is way cooler. It creates such a creepy vibe, and is helped by how graphic the kills are in this. Yeah, a Marvel thing with on-screen kills. It's a simple plot, but it works well for the runtime it has. A group of monster hunters must hunt a monster to earn the Bloodstone. We follow Jack, who is here to help the monster and can turn into a werewolf. His werewolf form is all practical and is just a lot hairier. I love it. This is a great Halloween movie to watch, and it is once again a breath of fresh air. We've been getting a lot of new and wacky ideas, and I love it. I don't really have much to say about Black Panther Wakanda Forever. I think it's an interesting yet way too long movie. Like, 2 hours and 40 minutes is just absurd. Since Chadwick Boseman passed away before this movie came out, they had to adapt and change the story to have themes of grief and loss. I think this is done beautifully and pays its respect to Chadwick really well. The story of Shuri learning to take the role of Black Panther to take on Namor is great, and the side characters are fun. Riri Williams, aka Ironheart, is a nice inclusion, but it doesn't feel like she's trying to replace Iron Man. They are pretty different characters, so I don't think we should be comparing the two. Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger has a cameo, with Shuri relating to him a lot. It's really the pacing that brings the movie down. There's just so many long scenes of characters talking, which wouldn't be bad if it wasn't 80% of the movie. I literally could have fallen asleep.
Christmas time is here.
Our second and seemingly final special presentation is a Christmas special with the Guardians. Drax and Mantis kidnap Kevin Bacon to give him to Peter as a present. It's a funny concept that would only work with the Guardians considering how silly they are. There's obviously nothing too deep to this plot, but the special serves as a nice little checkup to some of Marvel's best characters. We see that they've bought nowhere. Groot has gotten bigger, and Peter and Mantis are siblings now. This is all good stuff, and there's some great original songs, but we know these movies have great soundtracks. I could see this being a watch every Christmas type of movie. And guess what? That's Phase 4 done. Yep, no big final movie or anything. The whole phase kind of just happened. There's so many loose threads set up, with there barely being any connectivity, which is Marvel's whole thing. To this day, none of the characters introduced have returned in any way, except a few. So nothing feels important. You wouldn't even know this phase has ended. A lot of the projects range from meh to bad, but there's still some alright stuff to watch. I hope Phase 5 can do better. Ant-Man 3 starts off Phase 5, and it's kind of meh. But meh is better than some of the stuff Phase 4 gave us, and actually tried to push the story of the Multiverse saga. This movie's villain is Kang the Conqueror, who was one of He Who Remains variants. He's got a lot of powers, and screams big bad, but they put him in an Ant-Man movie. He comes off as kind of pathetic presentation-wise, because he's struggling against ants. You wouldn't have any idea this man would be the next Thanos. And he even gets defeated by Scott and Hope. Granted, they leave it open-ended, so he was probably meant to return, but the damage is done. Darren Cross from the first movie is brought back as MODOK, and he could have been a lot more intimidating if he didn't show us his ugly mug. Just keep the mask on, bro. His return does make sense though, and it's good how they tied him back into the plot. All the other characters are fine too. Cassie gets a lot more screen time, since she's been aged up and recast. Scott, Hope and Hank are all the same, without much development, but we are 3 movies in, so they don't really need to. Janet's the one connected the most with Kang. The biggest aspect that the Ant-Man movies had was the quantum realm, so having the whole movie set there is a great idea. It brings so many wacky characters and locations, and Bill Murray? All of this was giving me this weird feeling while watching, and it took me a while to get there, but it reminded me of a Star Wars movie. An evil dictator fighting a rebellion, and just look at this bar scene. I'm still pretty sad that there's no heist elements, and that Louise is nowhere to be found. He seriously brought a lot of comedic moments, and I didn't fully appreciate him until now. This was an okay watch, but it'll probably leave my brain. What were we talking about? I wanted to start by saying, Guardians 3 is the best thing out of Phase 5, but it's probably the weakest in the trilogy. The tone is completely different from the other two, focusing on a sadder atmosphere, which it does really well. There are lines and jokes that hit pretty well, but it really hits you in the guts with the more emotional scenes. I teared up 3 times rewatching this, and all of them were over a squirrel. This is really refreshing, as almost every Marvel movie has had its quippy tone and jokes. The other characters have grown a lot, and here have their own thing going on, but it's mainly about Rocket and his past with the villain. The High Evolutionary isn't a complex villain, he's flat out just evil, but I like it. He wants to make the perfect species, which works well, I guess, for the movie. The needle drops in the music don't hit as hard as the others, and feel almost out of place. Speaking of out of place, Adam Warlock, pretty funny character.
One more step and this weird thing gets it.
Don't be rash.
But he feels like he's meant to have more to do. I really don't have much else to say, really. Still a great movie, obviously, but there isn't much more for me to talk about that hasn't already been said. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a new champion for the worst MCU thing ever made. Seriously, I don't like the show. I was hoping to at least enjoy some elements of this dumpster fire, but I couldn't. At least with Ms. Marvel, there were one or two things I liked, but here there's nothing. I thought the plot was so damn boring when it had so much potential. A spy thriller with antagonists that can look like anyone, so you never know who can be trusted, is an awesome idea, but that factor never comes into play. The show makes sure to tell you who is a Skrull and who isn't, which just ruins the paranoia that could have been brought here. There's also a neat idea with the Super Skrulls, copying others' powers as well as looks, but this was also half-assed. They need the DNA of the person with powers, and Gravik and Gaia just get all of them. Yep, they get all the powers in the MCU, and I just hate that. I've never been a fan of someone's powers being that they get all the powers, and it just makes Gaia automatically the strongest character in the MCU, since she has Carol's powers, plus the rest. Speaking of the characters, none of them are interesting at all. Nick Fury doesn't work as well when you give him the main character role. Talos just kinda sticks around, and Gaia is boring and lame. Not even the villain was good, and he had a motivation. Since Nick failed to find the Skrulls a home, Gravik wants to take over Earth. There's just nothing about the series that's enjoyable to me. The fight between Gaia and Gravik was something a little bit exciting, with them switching through the powers. But this was just for 3 minutes. There's also some character deaths that probably should have made me more sad, but don't. Maria Hill and Talos both die, and I just don't care. I will never watch this again, ever. And Nick Fury got laid? Finally, a team-up movie. The Marvels brings together Carol Danvers, Monica Rambeau, and Kamala Khan as they swap places every time they use their powers. They must stop Dar-Ben from saving her home planet? No, she's killing the universe. She's a bad guy. I think she could have been a better villain if she had a better personality. She's like your standard bad guy. Her planet is the Kree planet Hala from the first Captain Marvel movie, and it's in ruin because Carol destroyed the Supreme Intelligence. Yeah, Carol isn't doing very well as a cosmic hero, and the movie explores her chaos. I do like this aspect because it humanizes her more than this powerful goddess. But her reign doesn't stop there. She accidentally doomed some Skrulls and never went back to see Monica. This creates some tension between the two, but luckily, Kamala is here to break the ice. She's the best part again, and the chemistry between all the leads is great. The switching places is a fun gimmick that they use to its full potential. This fight at the end is awesome. Other characters like Kamala's family and Nick Fury are here too, and they are all welcome inclusions.
Are you praying? Don't stop. We need all help we can get. Amen.
Since the film is set in space, we visit some alien planets, with one of those being a planet where their language is song.
We need to talk.
Okay, let's talk.
Oh, wait. He doesn't have to sing? Yeah, he's bilingual.
I think that's really cute. Kind of wish we saw some other planets with weirder ideas. The movie's also really short compared to the others we've gotten lately. Clocking in at an hour and a half, it doesn't overstay its welcome. I do think Monica's sacrifice was a little forced, like, you're telling me she couldn't do this from the other side? Pfft, never mind! It leads to a post-credit scene with the X-Man Beast. That's sick! This movie has a few freak-out moments, like when Kate Bishop makes a cameo, with Kamala wanting to recruit her for a team of young heroes. We have gotten a fair amount of them in Phase 4, so could this be who's in Avengers Doomsday? I sure am excited to see this get paid off in a million years. I was going into this show expecting the same reaction I had to Secret Invasion, but I actually enjoyed myself. Echo follows Maya from Hawkeye as she returns to her childhood home to take down Kingpin. I just realized that this plot description isn't all that accurate. Like, yeah, that is her goal, but she never actually does that. Instead, kind of helping Kingpin conquer his rage in the last couple of minutes. It is more about the journey, not the destination, as Maya confronts her past, learns about her ancestors, and reconnects with her family. I really enjoyed this theme of family sprinkled throughout the show, because it's really sweet, and it loves showing us Maya's ancestors, like they play the same quick shots of them every time something happens. This power of family stuff is kind of campy, but in a good way. What really had me invested was Maya, actually. We see more of her backstory and how it connects back to Hawkeye. Her relationship with everyone gives the show that small town vibe, which is really nice. And there's even a lot of great fight scenes. Who knew? This is good and all, but I can't help but think this is a very forgettable show. Like, I had completely forgotten how the show ended before rewatching it, because there's nothing that sticks with you. The only part I did remember was that Daredevil had a cameo, which is still really cool. I like that he only cameos in the MCU when it makes total sense. Good show, enjoyable to watch, but don't expect me to remember... What were we talking about?
To be clear, I'm not proud of any of this.
This is a weird movie concept-wise. Deadpool and Wolverine acts as a third Deadpool movie, a segue for these characters to be in the MCU, a movie honoring and moving away from the Fox universe, and a fun multiverse movie. And yet, it all works so well together. You'd think trying to force Wade into the MCU would be clunky, but having the TVA in the movie makes so much damn sense. There's something so special about seeing the Void and Alioth again, and it leads to so many cameos. Again, these should feel super forced, but it makes sense even in a meta way. Disney bought Fox, and in turn, pretty much threw that universe and characters in the trash to start over. That's what the Void represents. I had a great cinema experience reacting to Chris Evans showing up, Wesley Snipes saying the naughty R word, and Channing Tatum as Gambit was mind-blowing. I didn't even know he was meant to get his own movie. I was just surprised. These guys all play a part in the story, and we may even see him again one day. This is a movie about legacy, with Wade wanting to matter, and Logan redeeming himself for letting all the X-Men die and killing a bunch of people. This brings that surprisingly emotional core that all these Deadpool movies have, which is so shocking. You'd think these movies would just be really violent and potty mouth films, which they are.
You appear to have soiled yourself while unconscious.
I wasn't unconscious. Who are you?
But they have so much heart. Everyone puts on a great performance, but Hugh Jackman does it again. I think this version of the character is executed so well. There are times where Wade kind of feels like a side character, which doesn't bother me as much, but something I noticed. And Cassandra Nova is an okay villain. She kind of just wants to destroy every universe, which is a little lackluster, but there's a lot going on in this movie, so I get it. Near the end as well, the movie starts to drag, but it makes a joke about it, so I guess I can't complain. Even though the movie came out 6 months ago, it has so many iconic Marvel moments, like the opening credits. Absolute cinema. Our final stop on this massive journey is Agatha All Along, and I don't think anyone expected this to be good. Granted, the first couple of episodes did give off that the series would be really repetitive and even boring, but the end of episode 5 really kicked things into gear. It was the first Marvel show in a while that made me excited to watch it week to week. The show is about 5 witches and Sharon traveling down the witches' road with the promise of getting what they are missing. Every character wants certain things from the road, and this makes every character go on their own little journey. They must complete trials along the way and grow closer together. Again, this sounds kind of whatever, but there's so many twists and mysteries that do a good job keeping you engaged. Like this random teenager shows up and has some weird magic placed on him, so we don't know who he is. Well, he's actually Billy Maximoff. But doesn't he have a bad case of not being real? Yes, but when the Hex was closed in Wandavision, a boy got into a car crash, so Billy yoinked his body. He's on the road to find Tommy. I really like that Billy's in the show, and if they were setting up the Young Avengers, they would have to age the character up, I think. They do it in a genius way, and I hope we see him again soon. I'm not going to spoil some of the other twists because the show is still fairly new, and I think it's worth watching without other spoilers. The show managed to do something that other shows couldn't, make me care for all the side characters. It's really impressive that all of them get their own moment. But Agatha's name is in the show, so how is she? She's still just as evil, even though we got a lot of emotional moments and backstory with her. She's never redeemed. She never becomes good in the end, and even in her last moments, chooses to sacrifice Billy. She does die though, and returns as a ghost to guide Billy, I guess. While this is good and all, I can't help but feel like this is one of the shows that worked better week to week. Obviously, when you have big mysteries and reveals, it's not going to hit the same on the second viewing. And there are other moments where you just want the show to get on with it. But when that's the only part I dislike, We have a damn good show. It's funny too that there isn't much of an actual plot or main villain. It's solely about the characters, and they do that really well. Alright, I'm done. Let's rank everything. Secret Invasion, I Am Groot, Thor the Dark World, The Incredible Hulk, Thor, Miss Marvel, Avengers Age of Ultron, Echo, Hawkeye, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Thor Love and Thunder, Spider-Man Far From Home, Captain America The First Avenger, Captain Marvel, Black Widow, Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, She-Hulk, Moon Knight, Iron Man 2, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Ant-Man, Thor Ragnarok, The Marvels, Spider-Man Homecoming, Spider-Man No Way Home, Shang-Chi Legend of the Ten Rings, Black Panther, What If, Werewolf by Night, Agatha All Along, Loki, Wandavision, Iron Man 3, The Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Deadpool and Wolverine, The Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, Eternals, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Guardians of the Galaxy, Captain America Civil War, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame, Captain America The Winter Soldier, and Doctor Strange. I can't help it, I love this movie. While there was that overall drop-off in quality after Endgame, the MCU is still pulling bangers out of their ass. The problem it had in the end was that nothing really connected to each other. There wasn't much focus on an overarching story. The main villain got fired, and the rushing of all the TV shows and movies in Phase 4 really damaged how we view this franchise. While I don't consider all the new stuff bad, they're just disappointing. 2024 was actually a decent year for Marvel, with only 3 things coming out, and they were all decent. I know What If Season 3 is coming out later in December, and at worst that'll probably be okay. 2025's roster is looking stacked, so I hope it's good.